Hello, everyone. Just give me 1 second. Know the little routine. Trying to get myself together. Appreciate everyone being here, coming on in, and give you a chance to come on in. I see you all is here. I tell you guys, this never gets old for me. It's like every time I sign on, it's always like the first time. I'm getting better. But geez. All right, let me see who's all in the chat. Thank you for being patient with me those first little couple of minutes, because if you are a content creator that goes live, you kind of know what I'm going through. So you got to make sure everything is on mute and you're not having any interference and all of that crazy stuff. But I'm glad that you're here. I thank you all for coming. This is your backyard gardener. And today we're going to be talking about composting in your backyard to have a thriving garden, because I am absolutely on board with the compost thing this year, and I'm going to get knee deep into it. But before we do that, I would like to say hello to the people in the chat, and let me start up at the top so that I do not miss anyone. All right, Melanie, the moderator, hello. Thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate you. Miss Farola, thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Organics Best Urban Gardener, Shalom, how are you? Grand Rising to you. I appreciate you being here. Carolina Gardner, as always, I appreciate you. Taishi is back in the house again. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you. And let's see. Experimental Gardener, hello. Thank you for coming in. So it looked like I got a lot of gardeners in here. So we should have a lot of conversation in this next 30 to 45 minutes tops live stream about this composting. Now I'm telling you, composting is something that is really, really serious, and that actually a lot of people, not even just farmers or gardeners, but land developers that is buying all the land, and they're thinking about putting houses on it, and they want trees and all that. This is something they should think about, because when you're talking about composting, you're talking about restoring the ground. A lot of us are on clay soil, some of us on sandy loam soil, some of us is on sand. And that compost will come in and it'll make a difference in your soil, and it'll make a difference in your plants as well. First of all, I want to say I watched the video last night on I get his name mixed up with my other friend, but How to Garden. And he was doing an interview with a gentleman who had a lot of land, and I think from what I was getting from the land just was not good. But he brought in a lot of organic matter and compost, and he made that a thriving area. And then you have to understand, like in different countries, they don't have good soil at all. So the composting will actually help your soil. And it's things that you have or you use on your daily basis, like your kitchen scraps. Those are things that you use on your daily basis. You're instead of throwing them in the garbage, you put them in a compost pile. Your eggshells, you put them in a compost pile. Even so much as your hair, you could put that in a compost pile because all of that breaks down. You have wood chips, you have leaves. That's free resources that we get every year, somewhat on a daily basis. Grass clippings. That's another free resource. When you cut your grass, instead of throwing it over in your Corville container, how to garden. Thank you for coming. I watched that video of that interview, and I was really intrigued by that. I was just speaking about you. So these are things that we can use on a daily basis. And it was funny because I had planned my topic on composting early yesterday. But when I came across How to Garden's video on the interview, it was late last night. And I'm like, wow, it just connected. Like, I was just thinking about this. This is my topic for today. And that's a really, really good interview that he had. Brian, thank you for being here. I think this is my first time seeing you, but thank you for being here. I appreciate you for coming in. So, for natural, rich soil, compost is the way to go. A lot of people are into doing you know, the word is hard for me. I don't know why I keep trying to do it. Hugelculture type gardening, where they put a lot of the dead wood matter and wood chips at the bottom of the garden. And that's just like composting because it's going to compost away. And also at the bottom of that garden, then you put your soil on top and you start planting. I'm all good for that if it's an annual garden. If it's a perennial garden, not so much, because every year that soil, or every so many months, that soil is going to shift down, down, down in that bed. So keep that in mind when you're trying to do that. Put your perennials, put your annuals in there. Something that you put in there every year, but not something that you're going to put in there that's going to grow all year round and come back every year unless it's completely broke down and it has completely settled. So that's my thing about that. So glad that all of you all are in here. We're talking about compost today. So lots of household waste, particularly your vegetable scraps, can go into your compost pile. What compost does is it holds nutrition, and it puts nutrition into your soil for your plants. It breaks down and it brings your plants, it gives your plants nutrition, it feeds your plants. So this is why a lot of us are so gung-ho on having a compost pile. Brother Martin, Organic's Best Urban Gardener, did a compost pile at the back of his yard. And I mean, that thing started growing out plants that he hadn't even seeded. It was just from him putting his squash over in there, the scraps of his squash, and it just started growing and giving him extra food in his garden in abundance. So the composting thing really does work. I'm on board with it. I used to buy my compost, but it's not as good in that bag as it is when you have your own compost pile, or you go somewhere where they have a composting yard. You could pretty much get some compost good there. If you got a truck, you can have them load you up, or some of them will even deliver. And I just got in contact through one of the gardeners here in Michigan, Malik, that they will come out and they will deliver you as much compost as you need for your garden. So if you don't want to do a home backyard composting, there is other alternatives to composting. So there's two different types of things that you're trying to put into your compost. First of all, you want your brown matter, and then you want your green matter. So what we have to understand is what is our brown matter and what is our green matter. So if someone want to comment in the comment section, because we're gonna do this together. Your brown matter. What are the things that goes into your compost pile for your ground matter, and what is it? What does it contribute to the compost? Yes, it was a good interview. I really enjoyed it. Fully enjoyed it. Okay, so the brown matter, Organics Best said he does a 3-to-1 ratio of brown to green. So my brown matter is actually my newspapers, my leaves, my wood chips, my dead branches, things like that will go, sawdust, dry leaves, those go into your brown. That's your brown matter. That's all your brown matter right now, right there. Browns are the carbon matters, and they add balance to the nitrogen of the green. Yes, Miss Farola. So the green matter, all your green matter is a very important component because that's your nitrogen. And that brown matter is your carbon, and that's going to balance it out for you. So what Miss Farola had just said, and then Organics Best said, there's a ratio to your green and your brown matter. And once you get that right, oh man, you coming up with some really, really good soil. So your green matter is providing the nitrogen to most of the nutrients to that soil. That's what your green matter, your grass clippings, your chop and drop, your stuff around the garden. That's going to bring nutrients. You got say your bean plant then stop producing and you want to cut all of those off and cut those down and break it up. Even my comfrey, I'll get my comfrey, break it up, fresh comfrey, and throw over in there. And comfrey actually helps break down your compost faster too. There's also animal matter, without me jumping too far ahead of my subject. Let's go back. So it's important to have a mix of both green and brown. That's the bottom line. You can't do one without the other. You got to have them both to have a real healthy pile of compost. Now, once you do your green and your brown, I'm trying to look back over to the thing, brown cardboard, paper towel, toilet paper, roll, lint, hair. Organic Best is giving us an example of everything that's carbon source that can go into your pile. Food scraps, coffee grounds, can go into your pile. This is and I'm gonna leave this chat up for those that come back. You can kind of get a reference too for it. Now, what's out of your pile to take? So when you get your compost pile, the first thing you want to think about is the location of your compost pile as well. You don't want to put your compost pile in the area that holds a lot of moisture, or that's, for some reason it doesn't get a lot of sun, because sun is going to kind of help your compost pile. It's important to your compost pile as well. How to Garden of Eden, thank you for coming in. I appreciate you being here. Hello. So you remember, location for the compost pile is just as important as the things that you put in your compost pile, because you need that sun, and you need to be able to have it in a good place, in a good location that's feasible for you to go and turn, if you're going to turn, and to get your compost. Put it in a wheelbarrow, take it back to your plants, or however. A place that you could keep your eye on it, or, and not so much forget about it forever. Because if it's out of sight, sometimes it becomes out of mind. Indiana Backyard Gardener, thank you for coming in. I truly appreciate you. We are talking about compost and what's needed in the compost pile and the benefits of having a compost garden. So, we talked about what to put in the compost pile. Now we need to know what not to put in a compost pile. Things that you want to avoid. All together. Things that you want to avoid putting in your compost pile. Now, you can put chicken poop out of your chicken coop over in your compost pile. It will help your compost as well. But the thing about the chicken poop, I don't have a problem with. The rabbit poop, I don't have a problem with. But I do have a problem with horse manure. And I do, you know, I ain't too keen on, and a lot of people might disagree, this is just my opinion, on the cow manure. And the reason for that is because with those manures, they hold certain bacteria. If you got a sick cow or if you got a sick horse and they've been given antibiotics on a regular, well, that comes out of their body through their poop. And that's going over into making of your soil. So that's just the weird part that I'm thinking about. Might not be fact and proven, but in my mind, I don't think I want to deal with that. But rabbit and chicken poop, yeah. That's the only poop I will put in mine. Other people will say, well, human poop is okay. Not for me. No, that's just disgusting. It's mental. Okay, Brian is speaking to Indiana Backyard Gardener. Let's see what else we have. Now, you do have some harmful microorganisms in that poop, so you have to be careful. And you do have that bacteria in certain poop, so you have to be careful what poop that you put out in your garden. Very careful with that. No meats, no fats. That will not help your compost. All that's going to do is attract rodents to your compost because that meat is going to rotten, that fat is going to rotten, and the rats, the raccoons, the cows, the deers, whatever you got, the wild boars, if you have them, they're going to come running because they're going to smell it for a mile, and then you're going to be upset because it's going to reek back there. It smell like a dead carcass, and that's not going to be pleasurable for you. So do not put meats or fats into your compost piles. That ain't what you want to do. That's just going to attract rodents, and it's going to be a bad situation. Let me see. If it rains, cover your compost with a tarp. Too much rain and too loose of an inside temperature to cook your compost. Yes, that was Organic's best. Indiana Backyard Gardener, if you have a hot enough compost, it will get ripe on a will get rid of harmful bacteria. Excuse my reading. So yes, that is good. You have to have it at a certain temperature. I think it was, somebody correct me, when they do the hot compost, because there's different kinds of composts. There's a hot compost, there's a cold compost, and then there's a kitchen compost. Or a worm bin composting. So let's get that out there. There's 3 types of composting that you can do. But when referring to a hot compost, that hot compost have to reach a certain temperature, and I'm thinking 120. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. And that will start to, like I said, it will start to cook it and start to get it and releasing all of those different nutrients out of the soil, out of the compost and breaking it down. That one you have to turn too. Now, also with the carbon, let me go back for a minute. Also with the carbon helps with the aeration in your compost as well. It helps keep it loose. It helps keep it fluffy. It helps keep it air, because air is a very important part of your compost process too. So remember that as well. So that carbon will help with that. If it's not hot, if you hot compost, the horse manure will kill any pathogens in it. Okay, there you go. That's with the hot compost. 120 to 170 degrees hot compost. Thank you for telling me that. I needed to know that because I knew it was 120, but I didn't know what the highest was. And so it has to reach that temperature. And a lot of times you'll see the smoke coming off of it with those hot composters. Now, hot composters, it's a little bit more work than a cold compost, but it'll break down a lot faster than any of them. Okay, so keep that in mind. The ideal temp is 160. Okay, so now this is, we already talked about what not to put in the compost. And that's that's fats or meats. We don't want to put that stuff in our compost pile to compost down because that's just going to bring reap havoc. Synthetic materials. You don't want to put that in your compost pile either. The plastics, the gloss paper, like this. This is called glossy paper. The tags off your Amazon boxes, that blue strip, you don't want to put that in your compost pile because those things are not going to break down. Those are considered synthetic type material. You don't want to put pressure treated wood in your compost pile or painted wood in your compost pile. You don't want to put either of those things in your compost pile either. So you want to try to keep it as raw and as natural as possible in your compost pile to have a great compost. Because remember, that compost is, you're going to take that compost and you're going to add it to your soil around the plants, and all the nutrients from that compost is going to feed that plant and enrich that soil. So if you're enriching that soil with the wrong thing, that's going to go into your body. No dairy, absolutely. No dairy. Just egg shells, not the whole egg. Some people will put the whole egg in there. Just egg shells, because a lot of that is that commercialized experimental thing. What'll happen if I put a whole egg in the bottom? I feel like that leaves the wrong message when you do that. Do it all the way through. Do your hypothesis, complete it all the way through, and then come back and tell your results. But to start off saying that, it's just misleading. It leads people in the wrong direction. Wood ash, Organic's Best wood ash, but it needs to be from a natural source, real wood. Wood ash is very good. Plants love that wood ash. It's very good. So if you got a fire pit that you burn, and like you said, it needs to be from a natural source, and you're burning, and when that stuff break down, you can put that in your compost pile. I've even seen people to put some of that wood ash and sprinkle it around their flowers. X Solo D, hello, thank you for being here. I appreciate you coming in. Old beer is great for your compost. Old beer. I never heard of that one. X Solo. Indiana Garden said no charcoal or coal ash. Wood ash is okay. Now, Roller is speaking to everybody. Good afternoon. I'm trying to keep up with the chat and keep up with the... All right. Now, we're going to get to that Organic's Best, the different types of composting, ideals on how we can do. So we know we're not supposed to put animal meats or any of that because it'll leave a fats, it'll leave a terrible smell. We know we're not supposed to put synthetic matters in there, the glossy papers, the tags, and all of that stuff that comes on your boxes. Don't even put that stuff in there. Missy Garden, hello. Thank you for being... Missy, I was thinking about you the other day. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. I said I haven't heard from her. I hope all is well. Thank you for coming in. I definitely appreciate you. Let's see. So, now we know what to put in the compost pile. We know the 3 different types of composting. We got the cold, we got the wet. Now, this is just a light detail. Do your research and figure it out. We're giving you just the light keys of it. Now, we know what to put in it, what not to put in it. We spoke about the reason for the brown, the reason for the green, the ratio of it. Now, the styles of compost. We have the hot, we have the cold, and we have the worm bin. Because the worm bin, that's a whole nother method of composting. Do a little research. These are just ideals because you got to figure out which one is best for you. Now, the design of your compost. Now, I'm in a city. I'm in the urban area. So, me doing a big compost pile in my backyard, and I'll say from my back gate to the house is maybe 40 feet to 50 feet tops. For me, my fear of composting have always been, because yes, I do have a fear of composting, has always been what the compost attracts. And depending on the style of composting that you does, will attract even more. It will attract rodents. It will attract mice. It attract any rodent out there that want to eat. They eat fresh vegetables too, and they'll get in there and munch down. That was my only fear of composting, and for years I allowed that to hold me back. But now that I'm starting the urban farm, and it's a little bit further back from everything, and mice, everybody got them. You're not the earth has its rodents. They were here before we were here, so we have to learn how to coexist with them. And I don't just want to be. I just don't want to run across them. I'm scared of them. I really am. So you have to understand, the neater your pile is, the less complaints that you will get from your neighbors. Because your neighbors, when they see those big compost piles and just throw it out there, the first thing they gonna think is it's a mess. That's not, what is that? So to keep your neighbors off your back, especially if your backyard or your yard is exposed to others, you might want to be very creative in how you do your compost pile. Now, if you got a privacy fence or something up and they can't see it, okay, that's on you. But for me, it's visual, and I know people around here are visual. So I want to create something that will contain my compost and not just have a big pile that's thrown out there and everybody come and throw whatever and dump it on there. No, I want to have a nice structure. So really small mesh wiring around that structure if possible, so that the rodents can't be so easily to get in, but a determined rodent is going to get in there. So those are some things that you need to think about with the composting. Is the different types of designs. You got the wire mesh that you could put around, and you can just fill everything in there. You got the pallets that you can connect together, that you can put your compost pile in. Terry Smith, hello. Thank you for coming in. I appreciate you. Garden State Gardener. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you all coming in. So these are things that ideals of how you can maintain your compost pile and make it pleasing to the eye of others. Because if you block it off, they don't know what's behind there. So you got to keep that in mind too, because here in the city, if you have an urban garden in the city and you do have a compost pile and that stuff is just thrown out there, get ready to get a whole bunch of blight complaints from the neighbors, because it looks like a pile of trash. And not only is it looking like a pile of trash to the neighbors, but to other people that's riding by, they'll be like, oh, that's where they dumping it, and start dumping in it. So make sure you have it far back, and make sure you have it as neat as possible so that others will not be offended by the sight or the look of your compost, because compost is very important. Sharon, thank you for coming in. I appreciate you. I hope you're having a wonderful day. There's another compost pile, the tumblers. Now, if I go back, I have to go back. Organic Best was speaking about a different composter that you can purchase, I believe. You got the tumblers. I've made compost tumblers. I forget about them all the time and forget to turn them. But I've made tumblers out of 55-gallon plastic drums. Put a bunch of holes in them. Put a little hinge on it and made a little door. I have made that. I can't say if it was successful or not because once I made it, I didn't really fool with it no more because I was so scared of what might jump out the tumbler. So that's one of the ways that you can do your compost. Also, you have your kitchen scraps. You get a 5-gallon bucket, or is there a certain type of composting buckets that you put up under your sink? And as you put your different scraps in, once that thing gets full, you take it out to your compost pile. Now, some people just compost down. They'll take those scraps, they'll dig a hole, and they'll pour that compost in there, and they'll cover it back up. That's another way that people would work with their compost pile. So definitely, thank you, Melanie, for the 10-minute warning. Definitely put some consideration in composting because composting is really, 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 really a good thing. And if you have the space, even if you don't have the space, like I said, you could do your composting in the house where all your scraps is going into this bucket with a lid. And then you could bring it out to your garden, dig a hole, and let it break down there. And that area right there, it'll start breaking down up under that soil. You just keep, working at it. And once it breaks down and bring nutrients to your, complete compost, put it over in your garden and bring nutrients to your plants. Because that's basically what you're trying to do. You want to bring natural, organic nutrients to your plant. One of the things that struck my attention that is so important when I went to How to Garden and watched that interview was the gentleman said when you start to feed your plants synthetic fertilizer, that's what they're going to desire. That plant is going to continue to want those synthetic fertilizers. It's just like if you want drugs, you're going to continue, your body is going to continue to crave those drugs constantly. And this is what I got from that. If you start off organic, then that's what that plant knows, organic matter. If you start off synthetic, then that's what that plant is going to know and going to desire is that synthetic fertilizer. If watch that interview that he did, How to Garden. It was really a good video because it was actually good information to know, and a lot of things that we're not even connecting into the garden. So that was a really good interview. Miss says she has a tumbler, haven't had issues with rodents regarding getting in it, but I think I need to drill some more holes in it. Yeah, those holes is important for your air ration, especially when you move in that tumbler. I have a small tumbler in my greenhouse that I haven't even used because it's not that big. But yeah, you can get those tumblers. Organic Best said rainwater barrels or garbage can, drill holes all over the outside of it, and you'll have the perfect bin. Yes, I do agree. I have Indiana Garden said I have a bucket in the kitchen. Yep. And then as that bucket get full, you take it out. You put it into your compost pile that's outside. Bring that bucket back in and start all over again. So these are things that we could do for compost. I'm telling you guys, if you are a beginning gardener, intermediate gardener, experienced gardener, you either know or will find out that compost is the key to thriving soil, especially if you're living on clay soil and you're trying to figure out how can I make this soil better. You got to add that compost. Now, if you're not in an area that, or you feared buying, having compost for all of this time, here's the thing. You can purchase compost. I don't purchase compost anymore from Home Depot or any of that, and that's just my personal opinion because I don't know how long that compost has been in that bag. It hasn't been able to breathe or anything, and then I've gotten some bad looking compost from them before. It wasn't even broke down, just a whole bunch of sticks all through it. So I don't think that because it's a living thing. It's a living thing. Your compost is living. It's a living thing. So once you put it in that bag, it don't be it go from compost real quick from sitting in that bag for so long, and all your microorganisms and all of that, it starts to die off and it loses its nutrients. Cause you got to remember, this soil, you're building this, it's breaking down. You're putting in, mixing it into your soil, and it's making your soil better. If it's making your soil better, it has to be living. It has to have those microbes and everything that's in there in that compost matter. So keep that in mind as well. Okay, 5 minutes. Thank you, Melanie. I appreciate that. Good, healthy soil is the key to a successful garden. Absolutely. And that's why if you are growing in raised beds or in ground, you don't want to have to keep buying soil every year, even if you're a container gardener. You don't want to have to keep buying your soil every year, and then you don't want to have to keep buying all these synthetic fertilizers. When you can sit there, you can make your own. And it'd be just as nutrient dense and be just as rich as the stuff that you buy from Home Depot or Lowe's. I mean, if you're starting out, that's what you got to do. That's not a problem because that's the same thing that I did. I didn't start off composting. It took me a while to even know what compost really was and the benefits of it. But these are things that I wish I would have known sooner. If you're growing fruit trees and you're growing different types of berry bushes, I'm telling you, your trees is going to love, love, love you for that compost, and it's going to reward you. And your soil is going to reward you. Beautiful, beautiful plants, beautiful greens, and just thriving in every way possible. So keep that in mind when you're doing your composting. Do your research. If you go on Google, you will have some areas that sell compost piles, that sell compost in your area. Now, this year, if everything lines up with me purchasing this land and finalizing soon, I can go and get the guy to deliver me maybe a yard of compost. And I could just go through and get all my beds filled up because I don't think I'm going to plant over there this season because the process is taking a minute and I still have to build. But I'll have everything set and ready and sitting there and ready to go for next year. So keep that in mind. Best Yet Journey, hello. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you coming in. Indiana guy in my county does free compost for us. We just have to shovel it ourselves. That's not bad. That's actually really good. Because here we probably got a couple of spots that does it, but this one particular young man, his compost just looks so good and rich. And he'll bring it out on a big old truck and it lifts and pour it out, whatever, however much you need, or you could go and pick it up. Just have them fill up the back of you. If you got to pick up, they'll shovel it and dump it right over in the back of your pickup, bring it to your spot, and you shovel it off the back of your truck. And that was one of the reasons why it's important to, if you're going to garden on a big scale, you're going to have to need the equipment that you need to make it more efficient and easier in your garden. Okay, so look for places. There is places in your county that probably do have compost. Believe it or not, and it's good compost. You can go out there and you can check it out and see if it's good. If it don't look so hot, like it's not all the way totally broken down. That's the decision that you will make if you want to deal with it or not. So, if you haven't given this video a thumbs up, I ask that you thumbs up the video. It helps me out. I appreciate each and every one of you all who came and rocked with me today. Remember, Healthy soil and good soil and composting is the key to a thriving garden. Don't forget that. If you want your garden to really thrive, because with compost you can make compost teas, and you can pour it on your garden. Good compost. We want to try to get away from, if you're using synthetic fertilizers, my suggestion is to try to get away from that. I stopped using synthetic type fertilizer. I do, however, use synthetic fertilizers on my fruit trees. But in my garden with my squash and my greens and different stuff, it is organic fertilizers. That's what I put in my garden. So other than that, you want to think about it, because we don't know where all these ailments are coming from, with the cancer and the different things that's going on, different illness, MS and all of that. It has to be in our diet, because one thing we all have in common is that we eat and we drink. So the research got to be there, and I know that a lot of people have changed their diet and they feel totally better, and they were able to overcome certain illnesses because the way that we change our diet. So that's what we need to really kind of consider. Thank everybody for coming in. I appreciate you. Let's get out there and grow something. If it ain't time for you to get out there yet, like myself, it's something to be done in the garden. I need to trim trees. I've started my strawberries. They came in the same day we did the live. As soon as I turned off, my strawberries was delivered. And my 3 and a raspberry plant. So I up potted them. I got them in a cup, got them going. And now all I got to do is wait for the weather to warm up a little bit, put them out there. I'm starting to use the greenhouse a little bit more because it's really warm in the greenhouse during the day. And then at nighttime, I bring them in. I also got 3 new fig trees. My friend of mine here in Michigan, he lives about 30 minutes away from me. He had to downsize his collection, and he told me to come out, and I got 3 fig trees from him, and they're nice sized trees, so I'll be very, very happy to introduce those figs to you this growing season. So, thank you all for coming. Have a beautiful day. Get out there and grow something. Happy gardening, everybody.